guys, welcome for our third series of destinations on the Travel Collective. And tonight we're welcoming Patricia, and she's going to share with us about her trip to Italy. So take it away, April.
Sure. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're pleased to welcome Patricia Diggs, an explorer and executive director of Operation Backlot, which is a nonprofit workforce development program for the film industry in Los Angeles. So I'm super excited to hear about Patricia's trip to Italy, or multiple trips. I'm not even sure now. Sometimes they run together. So thanks for joining us, Patricia.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a great time to go down memory lane and, talk about my adventure, and people will listen to it.
Yeah. So we'll just start with, why did you choose Italy? What initially drew you to Italy?
Well, it was interesting. It's almost like Italy chose me. And this happened years ago. I worked the majority of my career in PR in Washington, D.C. And so I had a very good friend of mine, Carol. She was the art director at the Washington Post. And I was just very lucky and very, I say, privileged to go through the walls, or going through the Washington Post with her. She invited me, to her office, and I had a chance to meet some of the, great journalists in the country. And I remember having lunch, and so I was able to go behind the scenes at the Washington Post. So anyways, one day I met her at her desk, and they throw away books there. They always get books and periods, And I mean, they're great books, but they just don't meet up to their standards. But anyways, they had this big thing of books, and so I was sitting there. I said, well, I might find some good books in this pile over there. And this book came to me, and it was a book about travel for professionals. It was like a cultural travel exchange. And so I started looking at it, and I said, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. And then all of a sudden, my hands went to this Italian adventure. And I said to myself, wow, I've always wanted to go to Italy. Why? I don't know. I've taken a couple of Italian courses, when I was growing, in school and everything. But anyways, so it was this cultural exchange program, and, I was saying, I should just go ahead and check it out. And so I looked at it, and the price was really good. Everything was included. And I said, I'm going to do this for myself, And so that's what I did. I started saving my monies, and I think it was a deposit, and I started taking more courses in the language. And one thing led to another one. I was on my way to probably it was the adventure of a lifetime for me. I remember, getting on the bus, going to the airport, and traveling. I think it took about 6 hours from Washington to. We flew into Florence, and so it was. It was just for me, to be able to leave your soil and go to another soil. It was just tremendous experience for me.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So who did you travel with? You were part of a group then?
Well, it was people all over the world, actually, and we were all coming. We never met each other, and we were just meeting up. It was like a big meetup. And it was a cultural exchange. So we actually had classes that we were going to take half days, and we were going to experience Italy, in the afternoon and in the evening. And so we landed there, and we took a bus to our college. And college was situated in this little town called Viareggio. And it's a place where a lot of Italians vacation. I mean, this was just a big experience to me. I said, they're vacationing. I guess it was very hot. Everybody was off, or vacances. That's what they call it. And we all gathered, and we had people from, students or adult students from France, from England, from Poland, Czechoslovakia. We had Russians. And so it was like we were all sitting there one night. And then we had the Americans. We were there, of course.
Right.
And so it was really interesting because we were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to communicate here? And it was something we were so glad they picked English because every single one of them knew English fluently. However, the Americans, of course, we didn't know French or German or Russian, of course. So anyway, we decided to speak English, and so we started taking our courses. It was the course was great, but the main thing I got out of it was the similarities, was the experience with other people in the world and how similar we were. And we were all there trying to communicate to each other and also to adapt to our new surroundings. And you find out that people are basically the same everywhere you go. Everyone has their ups and downs and sideways, and certain people get along and certain people don't. But it was a whole push of that's what we wanted to do, is to get to know each other. So no one actually sat alone, at lunch or at dinner. Everybody wanted to come with you. They wanted to experience the American life, and the Americans wanted to experience Germans, and we wanted to experience each other, and especially we were experiencing it in a unknown land, Italy.
Right.
And it was just a great adventure. The culture is the people. You can find buildings anywhere you go in the world, in the United States, but they're buildings. But the culture, the people, makes the ambiance. And the Italians were just so, I like the word to use, soulful. They were very kind. They were welcoming. And especially, they knew you didn't know their language. At least you tried.
Right.
You tried. And of course, the majority of most Europeans, they know English quite well, but they're comfortable in their own language, in their own land. And so they really enjoyed us trying, to speak the language. And matter of fact, they were always concerned that you fit in. They wanted you to fit in. And that's something, unfortunately, Americans, we don't do that well. So it was a cultural difference. And I, coming from a very, a diplomatic, adventurous background, it was like I was observing them as they were observing me. And I was observing them because the culture was just so, I said, this is different than what I grew up in, and it was. And we were all, the Americans, we were all saying the same thing. It was, and maybe it was because we were in a small city, we don't know, but it was, people mattered. The thing, they didn't have, we always say they didn't have all the yada yadas. It was like even the language. The language is very simple there. I mean, blue is blue.
Okay.
That type of thing. So anyway, it was. You can see how it really impact can go on and on. But I should sort of kind of pause so you can ask questions.
No, it sounds amazing. So where you were staying was a small town, but were you all put up into like a villa where they had meals that they provided, that they cooked for you, or were you kind of on your own at certain points? How did that kind of work out?
Well, it was a college, and we were and we sat and we had dorms. It was actually they opened up their dorms, so it was a dorm situation, and they had meals for us, morning and afternoon, and in the evening time. No. They had the morning, the lunch. We were open. We had to get our own lunch, but they did serve us dinner, and then after dinner, of course, I'm sure this is typical of all European countries, is that, dinner is usually served before 8:00. And then after 8:00, we had free time. You passeggiata, or you walk, and we went into the little town, and, we were experiencing, the local people there. And it was one experience is that for me, it was just very heartwarming. I got lost. I got lost there. I've been out on my own. I got lost, and I was trying to figure out, okay, Pat, great. You're a foreigner in a foreign land, and you don't know how to speak the language, and you're lost.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't get my bearings. And so I was walking along, and this little older lady, I think she felt sorry for me because I was just walking around, and she said, she came up to me and she put her hands on my cheek.
Did she?
She says, "Dove, dove." It's like, where are you? And where are you going? Do you know? And I was trying my broken Italian. I mean, it was like,
right.
Where? I don't know. And then she said, that's a college. And she said, oh, college, see. Qui, over there. And I said, oh, grazie. And she gave me a big smile. And so that was just very heartwarming to me.
Yeah, that was. So she actually saved the day and pointed you in the right direction.
And I think, and for me, that was, knowing that the smiles and people sense, I graduated in communications and psychology, so I always pick up on, people's sensitivities. And for her, to just, even though I couldn't speak the language, she couldn't speak the language, but she knew that I was lost.
Right. She sensed it. Right.
She sensed it. And she helped me.
Yes,
she
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you were open you were trusting in her showing you the right way. Because I think sometimes we second guess, or sometimes we're like afraid, or like you mentioned, you're in a different place. You might have been untrusting, but you sensed her openness, that she's honestly trying to help you.
She was trying to help.
That's fabulous. So that answered about the locals. You obviously spent time with the locals. So, are there any
the locals?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Tell me more.
Oh, no. And that was the whole thing about that made the encounter so enchanting. The Americans, we spent some time together too, but even the Americans that I was with, we wanted, that was the whole purpose of the trip, was cultural exchange.
Right.
We wanted to get to know, the locals. And at one point, it was a coffee shop that we always went to, like in the morning time, to get some cafe. And, after you go to places 2 or 3 or 4 times, people get to know you.
Right.
And so they got to know us, and they knew that we were struggling with our Italian, and they were trying to, at that time, well, they have euros now, but at that time they still had the lira think it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, something like that.
Right.
And so that we were trying to get our exchange together, and people were just very helpful, and selling their fruits and vegetables, to us. And I think the biggest thing when you get in a little local situation is that in a short period of time, you become family in a way. Because
Right.
they see you every day and say, oh, there's Patricia. Patricia is here. Ah, ciao, Patricia. And then it's like a big, the Italians, everything is just so bright and dramatic,
Right.
and the smiles and it you feel warm, welcoming, that you're just not a lump of a human being. I mean.
Right.
Right. Or you're just a cup of coffee. No, you're a presence.
Right.
And we like you, and we want you to come back.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, I'll okay, more questions.
Okay. So, what time of year did you go?
Well, it was interesting in August.
Oh, it was
I
August.
didn't know anything about going to Italy or Europe in August. But I found out, number one, it's very hot. And number two, everyone is on vacation.
Oh.
That's considered high time in travel. And I didn't know. And so I was just wondering, do these people work around here? But they were on vacation. And even working is not the type of work that a whole afternoon where a siesta where they can sort of go home and relax and eat and then get up again and go to work for a couple more hours, and you come back home, you eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was it. So anyway, so that was the cultural exchange, and then we went on our excursions, and we met more people on the train, and people met us on the train. And one of the young ladies that hung out with us, I can't remember her name, but Julia. Yeah, she was from Germany, and we just got into some very deep, profound conversations about life and about countries and all that. And we asked her, I asked her, we always had conversations of, we wanted to find out about Germany. And then I remember asking her, I said, I'm an American, and we always hear about the horrible things that happened, with Germany and the Holocaust. And she says, yeah, Pat, we're sort of kind of branded that way. But she says we learned very early on in kindergarten, that was a terrible time in our history, and we have learned how to build away from that,
right?
And so that was those kind of exchanges was just a lifetime. It was just a lifetime endeavor.
Right.
And then, of course, our excursions. I mean, Italy is and I read about this before I left, because I read all these books about Italy, not in modern times, but in ancient times too. And it was a whole idea of a lot of the philosophers. They always said that Italy will grab you. You will always want to come back. And I can see what they were talking about, because it unfolds. I mean, first of all, you go to the wine. You go to the wine country. Okay, you see olives. Okay, but then you go to Florence, and then you see all the artwork, and then you go to Rome, and and then you go up the coast to Cinque Terre, which is some of the most beautiful coastline that I've ever seen. And then if you have a chance to go to Milan, you see the big Duomo, and then all the fashion. And then the food. Oh, the food.
See, you went into one of the questions, the food. We always love to hear about the food. So tell us about some of your favorite foods or must-haves if you go to Italy.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people think Italian food is all pasta, which is not. They eat very well, actually. They eat a lot, vegetables, a lot of fish, which is very good. And the pasta is more on the side. It's sort of like a side order. It's not a main dish. And the pasta, and the pasta is just exquisite. I mean, it's just the flavoring, the sauces, and the fish is just so fresh. You know that even when you buy food from little markets, where people actually and put it into the market. It's not sitting 5 days. And one thing I've learned too, about, and maybe this might be all over Europe, is that they don't stack up with that they like fresh food, fresh. And matter of fact, I'm in a habit of doing that myself. I remember I was almost chastised by this Italian man. We all went out to dinner, and we were going to take, leftovers. I mean, this food is just great. And he said, Patricia, no good for you, no. And I said, but we spent this money and this is good, but no fresh. And so we gathered that the freshness is important, because that's how I notice that they eat, and it's fresh from the market, from the ground. It's, I guess, what we call organic. But it's real. And then again, the wine, vino. That's a whole different subject. Okay, in Italy. Wine is all over the place. Very good wine too. You have the white, you have the red, and it's very, very good wine. And the wine is, and that's one thing I notice about the Italians, is that the wine is a complement to your food. It's a complement to your dinner. And actually, I didn't see any Italians really drink liquor, and that's a little bit too, they sort of kind of shone on that a little bit, but the wine is, it's a daily portion of their lives. Right. And it's a great compliment.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So are there special items or skills that you would suggest packing or taking with you if you go to Italy?
Well, I would say Italy is a place that you just want to discover and explore and just be. You just want to be there, And of course you want to take pictures. You want to take souvenirs. I mean, they have a lot of nice things over there, but it's a place to be with world history because a lot of it is there. And some of the, philosophers, the painters, the architects. I mean, you have Rome, for God's sakes. It's and history. You just want to be there. Now, the Italians are fashion conscious. Presentation is everything to their culture. How you present yourself, how you look, the whole idea of etiquette is very important. I think that's how they judge. I mean, everybody judges people, and I think with a smile or with courtesy. And I don't know. I mean, my background, my parents have always taught me is that, in Rome, you do what the Romans do. And when you're in somebody's house, you respect that. And, and I think, I noticed a couple of times some of the Americans, had a little bit of arrogance, with them that, they start speaking English and all that kind of stuff, But if you try to speak their language, that's courtesy. I mean, you're a foreigner in a foreign land.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have a passport. Okay, so that means you're not a resident there. You're a guest.
Right.
And I think you should act accordingly.
That's very helpful to keep that in mind. Just to to respect their culture and.
Yeah, it's respect, and to me, it's just common courtesy. I mean, that's how you start building relationships and diplomatic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel that when you travel, especially, from another, you're a diplomat. You want to get along. You want to find out, and people want to get along with you, and they want to find out too. And what a wonderful human exchange that can be.
Right. So of all the places that you got to sample while you were in Italy, it sounds like you covered a lot of ground. Were there any that are definitely not missed? If you, like the highlights, that if you had to choose a portion of Italy, something that really stood out for you?
Florence stood out for me. And I think the Italian name is Firenze. I hope I'm pronouncing it Firenze. That stood out to me. I think you have a statue of David is there by Michelangelo. And, oh, God, the churches. They don't call them churches. They call them dormos. And you look at how this is all human-made. The inlay, the gold, the marble. And even if you go to Rome, you look at the ruins of the Colosseum, all that was handmade, and you start, then you start looking at the history of the Roman Empire, who actually made these buildings. So it's a lot of history. It's old.
Mm-hmm.
It's old there. I had a friend of mine that I met that came to the United States, and I was just so proud of the United States. I mean, wow, okay, well, I'm here. I'm going to show you the United States, Washington, D.C. And I took my friend to the Capitol, to the White House, and some of the old sections of Washington, D.C. And he looked at me and he said, Patricia, this is not old. This is not old. Italy is old. This is not old. So it was interesting that, for someone who come from a different country, especially Europe, and come to America, it's like, yeah, well, you haven't been around that long. And probably all your architecture is a copy of us. So that was sort of kind of a kick. But in terms of places to see in Italy, oh, wow, I want to go back. I want to go to the Amalfi Coast. And also I want to experience Pompeii. I didn't get a chance to go there. And then there's this little island, Capri. Is nice. And Elba, there's a little island. We did go to Elba, and that was very nice. It's just it unfolds, and what's so nice about Italy is that there's so many beautiful places to go, and it complements the culture. It complements the lifestyle, of the Italians. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of it. It's a lot of it, yeah.
And you also mentioned, so I'm going to have to ask, you mentioned to me that love is always in the air. Could you care to expand a little bit on that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, love is always in the air. I mean, men knows, well, how can I put this? Men know how to be men. Women know how to be women. And they know how to exchange that. Mm-hmm. In terms of, you know, I mean, if you're a beautiful woman, they will let you know that. You know, men are not shy of saying Bella or even you know, saying ciao, you know, or just, or if you're looking very nicely, you know, they recognize that. And I think that, you know, maybe these things have changed, those kind of things have changed here in America, but I think as a woman, you know, we like that. You know, we like to be, you know, noticed, and and they, you know, and it's, you know, it's always that soul exchange, that little eye catching, or, you know, or looking at you, or you're looking at them, or the eye is very important. And so it's almost like that undertone electricity of love, you know, amore, you know, it's in their, it's how they look at things, you know, and life is dark. You know, that's one thing I picked up with a lot of our European counterparts that was there. Most of them were granddaughters of World War II. They have a whole different perspective on life. You know, they remember when their towns were bombed. And I mean, Italy was totally rebuilt by the United States. I mean, and for some reason in their DNA, they know about that. They know about the dark side of life and how dark life can be. And I think that's the reason why they make it up in terms of, well, let's look on the lighter side of life. I mean, let's look at love. Let's look at beautiful pictures, you know, beautiful men, beautiful women. I mean, let's turn this around a little bit.
Right.
And they were very, one thing I observed is that, and I think Americans, here I'm philosophizing a little bit, but I'm making some comparison analysis. See, Americans are not, and I think even for me as an African American, I felt that I could identify with them a lot better, or they can identify with me. Because in Europe, you know, like again, they know what oppression is. They know the dark side. And I think with Americans, fortunately or unfortunately, we've never had a major war here on our shores. You know, I mean, we have this pandemic right now, but it means to have bombs flying over our cities that's landing on our communities. And I think that does something, you know, to the human psyche. I just loved it over there.
I can tell you did.
It was a lifetime. It was a lifetime experience.
Yeah, it sounds fabulous. Wow, what an amazing trip you had, and just life-changing, like you said. So I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
Oh, there's questions. Oh, boy. Okay.